All right, so let's begin talking about using our linoleum cutter tools. So this is what they look like, and they come in, most handles look like this, but you can see that the size of the blades are a little bit different. You will probably use a smaller one, more like this, but if you are cutting away a lot of areas, you'll probably want a bigger one. So we will talk about where we put those things in the classroom. But if you're wanting to switch out the size, so like this one, I want to switch for the bigger one. What you're going to do is you're simply just going to twist, and this will pull out there. And then what you're going to do is you'll see, I know it's kind of hard to see in video, but there's kind of a little slot in here. Sometimes you might, this is okay that comes off. Sometimes we put the extra blades in there. So what we're going to do, so this bigger part, not the skinny part, is going to go in here. And if it doesn't quite fit, just kind of rotate it around. And then you're just going to twist so that it is secure in place. And it's always good to check that before you get started anyway, because you don't want to be starting to carve and it just like falls out. Okay. So what I would encourage you guys to do first is I have some practice pieces that are a little bit bigger that you guys can use to practice on, okay? It's important because these can cut your fingers a little bit if we're not being careful. So if I'm wanting to cut out this line, one thing that you always do is you carve away from you, okay? So notice that I'm carving away from my body, and notice, yes, my hand is here to stabilize it, but my hand isn't here that I'm gonna run over it, okay? Those are the things that you have to keep in mind. I'm gonna switch this one back to the bigger blade so I can show you the difference. All right, so you can see here that creates a little bit of a wider and deeper cut, just a little bit, okay, which is fine. This is what we don't want to do. We don't want to dig down into this like we're digging a hole up and gouging the material, because that's actually harder. If we want it to be a little bit deeper as we do this, you're just going to go over it maybe 2 or 3 times, all right? That will be the best way to do that. So keep in mind where your hand is. Never cross over here like this. We don't want to have any little cuts on our hands, okay? And that can happen if we're not paying attention. So let's take this to our actual carving. So this is the part where we have to go back to that black and white design, okay? Everything that's in pencil, I am going to leave. Everything that is the orange space, that's what I'm going to carve out. So you might decide, well, I need to thicken up these lines a little bit. So for here, like maybe I need to fill these in, because I want to have more of a variety in there. All right. So you'll kind of have to decide on what that looks like. I'm going to leave. All right. So I'm going to get started carving. Okay, so after you have your eraser carved out, what you're going to do is you're going to create a test print to make sure that it looks how you want it to look. So what you're going to do for that is you're going to take a little tiny bit of ink. Notice this is like the size of an eraser. Then so we're putting this on a clear plastic piece of paper. I'll show you plexiglass. I'll show you where those are. This is what we call a brayer. And what we're doing with this is we're spreading back and forth to create a solid coverage, okay? So here, my brayer isn't equally covered, so I need to add a tiny bit more ink. So here, We have more coverage now. You can kind of see that texture, and there's a little bit of a nicer that sticky sound. Here's that texture that you can kind of see. You can see that on the brayer as well. So now, because our prints are really, really small, we don't need to fill the whole printing plate. Instead, I'm just going to roll this on, covering this area. So this already shows me how that's kind of going to look. Then for this, there's a couple different ways we can do this. The first way we can do this is we can flip this over, do it eraser side down, and obviously your paper will be bigger. I just use a scrap paper, and you're just gonna press. If you don't have enough ink, this part isn't going to work. Then we reveal it, and then you decide, okay, do I like my design? Are there areas that I need to carve out a little bit more? Like here, I want my sides of the mountains to stand out a little bit more from another. So even when this is still wet, I can take my carving tool and carve that out a little bit more. So some of those spots there, sometimes it's kind of easier to do that. So that's maybe one adjustment that I want to make. Same with over here on this side. Okay, so then we could do another test print. I still have enough ink here, so I'm just gonna use this. And then this time, when I roll it on, I'm gonna show you how to do it the opposite way. So instead of putting it down like this, we could take the paper, go like this, and then this time I just have to rub with my hand, but I'm holding it down in place. So now when I peel that up, we have my second print, and we can see how that cut made a little bit of a difference. So that is what you will do to test your print. We will talk more about using ink and different colors in class.